today on Musician's Edition, we are looking at the Essential Elements Snare Drum Book at number 116, which is called the TurnAround. Okay, in number 116, there's a few things to talk about. One of them is kind of building on what we worked on in number 112, right? Which is that 16th note roll pulse that we established, that we used in number 112, right? We're going to use that same roll pulse here. So every time we see the rolls, right, in measure 1 and measure 4, we're thinking 1E and a 2, right? Or in measure 1, we're thinking 3E and a 4, okay? So let's go ahead and just catch those spots that have the rolls real quick and just make sure we feel comfortable with where those are, okay? So you notice it's on beat 3 of measure 1, right? So we're playing 3E and a 4, right? 3E and a 4. Right? And now we can just finish out the measure and we'll do 3E and a 4 and, right? Buzz, 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 single, single. Ready? Let's try that. Right? And then you notice in measure 4, when we have our other roll that we have in this piece, it's just 3E and a 4, right? Okay? Now, there's a difference between the roll in measure 1 and the roll in measure 4, right? And the difference is that you see an accent over the top of the roll in measure 1, and there is not an accent over the top of the roll in measure 4, right? So what we have to do with that accent, right? Typically on snare drum, a note that's accented is just louder than the other notes around it, right? But when we have a note that is rolled and accented, we can think a little bit more like a wind player would, right? Because now we're dealing with sustain, whereas when we're playing single notes on a snare drum, we're not dealing with notes that last any particular amount of time, okay? So when we think about a note with an accent on it, we're thinking more sound at the beginning of the note than at the rest of the note, right? What that's going to translate to in our hands is we're going to play one loud buzz, and then the other buzzes are going to be softer than that, right? So we're thinking 3E and a 4, right? 3E and a 4 and, okay? So one louder buzz and then the other buzzes are going to be just like we've been doing, right? So we're thinking 3E and a 4 and, 3E and a 4 and with one loud buzz. Okay? 3E and a 4 and. Now that might feel a little bit out of control, right, when you kind of go for that first loud buzz. So just practice it enough times that it feels nice and comfortable before you move on, okay? So now that we have that in measure 1, it's important that we don't do that in measure 4, right? So accent in measure 1, don't accent in measure 4. So those two rolls should sound quite a bit different from each other, right? So I'll play them back to back so you can hear the difference. So here's the accented one. Here's the not accented. Okay? Versus. Okay? So that's how we want that to sound. Now another thing we have to deal with in this piece are the accents, right? The accents that are on the single notes, right? So when we're dealing with single notes, like we mentioned a minute ago, we're just going to make that note a little bit louder than the notes around it, right? So in measure 1, we're thinking 1E and a 2 and 3E and a 4 and, right? Or 1E and a 2 and buzz 4 and, right? So let's try all of measure 1, right? So remember to get those accents, we're just thinking that that note comes a little bit higher, right? When we prep to play that note, we're going to come a little bit higher than in the surrounding notes. Okay, so here's all of measure 1. Ready, and go, and. Right? 1E and a 2 and 3 and a 4 and. Okay? Now let's jump ahead to measure 3 where we have some more accents, right? Remember that rhythm there, 8th note followed by 2/16 is 1 and a, right? 1 and a. Same rhythm on beat 2, 2 and a, right? And we're going to accent the 8th note, 1 and a, 2 and a. So let's try just that rhythm. Ready, and. Okay? And then we have 3 and 4 and in the second half of the measure. 3 and 4 and. So we put it together, we have 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 4 and. Let's try that. Ready, and go, and. okay? And then no accents in the last measure, and that just leaves measure 2 that we have to figure out, right? So if we look at the first 2 beats of measure 2, we have the same accent pattern, the same rhythm as the first 2 beats of measure 3, right? 1 and a 2 and a, okay? And then after that, we have a single eighth note that lines up with beat 3, and then a dotted quarter note after that eighth note, right? So eighth note on beat 3, so that only takes up the first half of beat 3. The note after that has to be the second half of beat 3, right? So the dotted quarter note happens on the and of 3, okay? And since it's a dotted quarter note, it fills up 1.5 beats, so it fills up the second half of beat 3 and also all of beat 4, right? So when we put that measure together, we have 1 and a 2 and a 3 and, right? And then we're just gonna wait through the end of the measure, right? 3 and 1, right? Thinking 3 and 4 and 1, okay? So make sure during the dotted quarter note that you don't stop counting, right? You're still thinking and 4 and, so that you can come in on time in the next measure, right? So now when we put this whole thing together, let's just count through it once so we can kind of comprehend where the accents line up, where the rhythms line up, and then where the rolls are, right? So we're thinking 1E and a 2 and buzz, 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and buzz 4. Okay? And then you'll notice there's a repeat sign at the very end. So once we get all the way to the end, we'll go all the way back to the beginning and play the whole thing again. Okay? Now you'll notice there's not a dynamic written on 116. So for right now, we're going to play it at a nice mezzo forte. And then here in a minute, we'll kind of play with the dynamics a little bit, and just to kind of work on playing at different volumes. Okay, so here's 116 at a nice, comfortable dynamic. We're gonna go all the way through and take the repeat. All right, 1 and 2 and ready, go. Okay, so now once we're comfortable with playing this at that comfortable dynamic, let's change it up a little bit and let's play it once at a louder dynamic. Okay, so that's going to change the differences in heights between our accented and unaccented notes. Right, our unaccented notes are going to be a little bit louder than they were just now if we play it at fortissimo instead of mezzo forte. Right, and so that means our accents are going to have to be even bigger, right, or even higher with our stick. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the snares for this one just to kind of save our ears a little bit. But let's try number 116. We'll just do it one time through without the repeat this time, and let's play it at fortissimo. Okay, 1, 2, and ready, go. Okay, now once we've done that and you feel comfortable with that dynamic, then try it at a really, really soft dynamic, right? More like the piano like we did in number 112, okay? So here's 116 again, but at a piano dynamic, okay? This is gonna make all the differences in accent and unaccented much, much more subtle, right? Or much closer together. Whereas at fortissimo, there's a bigger difference in our stick heights, right? At piano, everything's pretty close together, so we have to be really, really careful and really detailed that we get the accent notes to stick out, but we don't play them super loud, right? They still have to be piano, but just a little bit louder than everything else, okay? Here we go, one time through at piano. And ready, and go, and... Okay, so it's always good to practice these things at different dynamic levels and different tempos as well. If it's comfortable at the tempo you're playing at, try it faster, try it slower, right? If it's comfortable at the dynamic you're practicing at, try it louder, try it softer, right? And then over time that will just kind of increase the vocabulary that you have in terms of tempos and dynamics and being able to make accents and rolls sound good in at different speeds and at different volume levels, okay? So have fun with that, practice it as many different ways as you can think of, and I will see you next time.